I'm Jenna Harper. I'm 35 years old, and the last thing my stepmother ever said to me before I drove away on Thanksgiving was this: "You're a failure, Jenna, and don't bother coming inside if you didn't bring money." She didn't whisper it. She didn't pull me aside. She stood in the driveway, pointed her finger at me like a loaded weapon, and screamed it loud enough for the neighbors to hear. I hadn't even turned off my engine yet. My SUV was still packed with gifts: a case of wine for the table, a new laptop for my sister, a wool blanket I bought because Mississippi winters still surprise me every year. I had driven nearly 4 hours, rehearsing polite conversations in my head, telling myself this time would be different. This time, we'd just be a family. I looked past her shoulder, hoping, just once, that my dad would say something. He stood in the doorway with his arms crossed, staring at the floor. He didn't defend me. He didn't interrupt her. He didn't even look at me. That silence hit harder than her words ever could. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I didn't explain. I put the car in reverse while gravel crunched under my tires and backed out of the driveway like I was leaving a crime scene. An hour later, I was sitting alone in a cheap roadside motel, staring at beige walls that smelled faintly like bleach and regret, trying to understand how I had become the villain in a family I'd been financially carrying for almost a decade. That night was the moment everything broke. But to understand why it broke me so completely, you need to understand what my life actually looked like before that driveway. On paper, I was the successful one. I'm a real estate entrepreneur based in Jackson, Mississippi. I built my brokerage from the ground up. No loans, no inheritance, no safety net. I didn't marry into money. I didn't have investors holding my hand. I worked my way up from entry-level listings to commercial acquisitions, studying market trends late into the night, cold calling sellers who hung up on me, and learning the hard way how to close deals when no one was rooting for me. By my early 30s, I was flipping properties, leasing office space, and negotiating contracts that brought in 6-figure commissions. I had financial freedom I never imagined growing up. I owned my home. I controlled my time. I built something real. And for years, I poured every ounce of that success straight back into my family. After my mother passed away, everything changed. My dad remarried quickly to Linda. She moved into his life with opinions, expectations, and a talent for spending money that wasn't hers. At first, I helped because it felt right. I paid the electric bill so their lights wouldn't shut off. I covered rent when my dad's hours were cut. I helped my younger sister Carla with tuition because I believed in her dreams. Carla wanted to be a journalist, an investigative reporter. She was smart, curious, and still young enough to believe hard work would protect her from manipulation. I didn't want her buried in student loans the way I had been, so I paid. Linda noticed. She noticed quickly. The requests started small. A little extra for groceries, help with car repairs, money for emergencies that never seemed to end. Then the tone shifted. "You have money, just send it. Don't act like it's a big deal. You're single, what do you need it for?" Designer curtains, a mahogany dining table, a leather sofa because the old one looked cheap when her friends came over. One summer, she demanded $6,000 to host an outdoor party, private chef, live band, catered cocktails, because she said it would be good for family bonding. I sent the money. My dad never called to say thank you. Whenever I tried to push back, he'd lower his voice and say, "Just talk to Linda about it," before disappearing behind his newspaper, like conflict was something contagious. It broke my heart in ways I didn't admit out loud. I wasn't just paying bills. I was paying for silence. I was paying for peace. I was paying for the hope that one day they'd look at me and see more than a bank account. Dana saw it before I did. Dana Pierce is my best friend. We're the same age. We work in real estate together. She watched me juggle deals worth hundreds of thousands of dollars during the day, then wire money at night to fix problems I didn't create. Over lunches at our favorite cafe in Jackson, she'd shake her head and say, "They're taking advantage of you. You need boundaries before they drain you dry." I laughed it off. I told myself family was complicated, that love required sacrifice, that once things stabilized, they'd appreciate me. I was wrong. For nearly 10 years, I carried them. Quietly, consistently, without recognition. Every check I wrote felt like a silent plea. See me, respect me, love me. Thanksgiving was supposed to be different. I imagined us sitting around the table, eating, laughing, telling stories about my mom without tension in the room. I imagined being a daughter again instead of a provider. Instead, I was ambushed in a driveway and called a failure for not bringing cash fast enough. That moment didn't just hurt my feelings. It exposed the truth I'd been avoiding for years. They didn't see me as family. They saw me as a resource. Sitting alone in that motel room, replaying my father's silence and Linda's venom, something shifted inside me. I realized that no matter how successful I became, no matter how much I gave, it would never be enough. Because what they wanted wasn't love. It was control. And that night, for the first time in my adult life, I made a decision that terrified me. I was done holding everything together. The morning after Thanksgiving, I woke up in that motel room with a strange sense of clarity. Not relief, not peace. Clarity. I sat on the edge of the bed, still wearing yesterday's clothes, my phone resting in my palm. For years, I had told myself I was helping, that I was doing the right thing, that being the responsible daughter meant absorbing discomfort so others wouldn't have to. But now, stripped of excuses, the truth was painfully simple. They had learned to survive on my silence. I called my bank first. My voice didn't shake when I spoke to the representative. I asked her to cancel the recurring payments: electricity, utilities, insurance. I voided the lease I had co-signed for Linda's rental. I shut down the shared credit card I had opened temporarily years ago. Each confirmation felt like pulling a plug from a machine that had been draining me slowly. When the call ended, I sat there staring at my hands, waiting for guilt to swallow me. It didn't. Instead, I felt something unfamiliar. Light. By that afternoon, the fallout began. Without my payments, the overdue notices arrived quickly. The power company didn't care about family dynamics or emotional labor. Bills unpaid were bills unpaid. The heat shut off as Mississippi dipped into a cold snap that none of them had prepared for. Linda panicked. She always did when control slipped. She called me 3 times in a row. I let it go to voicemail. "Jenna, this isn't funny," her voice snapped, urgency barely masked by entitlement. "The power's off. The landlord is threatening us. I need you to send money right now." No apology, no acknowledgement, no remorse. I deleted the message. An hour later, Carla texted, "Jenna, what's going on? The house is freezing. We barely have food left. Where are you?" That one hurt. Carla wasn't cruel. She was just trapped, young, dependent, still believing loyalty meant endurance. For a moment, My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I wanted to explain everything. I wanted to protect her. I wanted to fix it. Instead, I typed 2 words: busy with work. It felt brutal, necessary, final. I drove back to Jackson that evening and met Dana at our usual coffee shop. The moment she saw my face, she knew something had changed. I told her everything. The driveway, Linda's outburst, my dad's silence, the motel room, the phone calls. Dana listened without interrupting, her jaw tightening with every detail. When I finished, she leaned forward and said something I'll never forget. You didn't abandon them. You stopped enabling them. Her words grounded me. She reminded me that boundaries feel cruel to people who benefit from your lack of them. That stepping away doesn't make you heartless. It makes you human. We shifted focus to work, reviewing numbers for a commercial lease I was negotiating. It helped remind me who I was outside of their chaos. But Linda wasn't done. That night, another voicemail arrived. This time her tone had changed, softer, calculated. Jenna, sweetheart, we're family. Families don't do this to each other. You're hurting your father. Think about that. That one made my stomach twist. She knew exactly which strings to pull. Still, I didn't respond. The next few days were a blur of missed calls, guilt-laced texts, and silence from the one person I needed most. My dad never reached out. Not once. No apology, no explanation, no defense. His silence became louder with every hour. By mid-December, Carla called again. Her voice was different this time, less confused, more unsettled. Jenna, something's not right here, she said. Linda keeps changing the story. Dad won't answer questions. What actually happened that day? I told her. I told her about the driveway, the pointing finger, the words failure and useless, the way Dad stood there and said nothing. There was a long pause. I didn't know, she whispered. I swear I didn't know it was that bad. I believed her, but belief didn't fix everything. Later that week, Linda sent a long text message, paragraphs of accusation wrapped in fake concern. You have a responsibility to this family. We're struggling because you abandoned us. How can you live with yourself? I stared at the screen, my hands shaking with anger. Not once did she mention selling my mother's belongings. Not once did she acknowledge her own behavior. Not once did she apologize. She rewrote reality like it was a hobby. I didn't reply. Then the rumors started. A cousin texted me, cold and disappointed. Didn't expect you to turn your back on your own blood. An aunt stopped answering my messages. Linda had gone on offense, spreading her version of the story, painting me as selfish, greedy, heartless. I realized then that this wasn't just about money anymore. It was about control, and she was losing it. Right after New Year's, everything exploded. My Aunt Susan, my mother's sister, showed up at my dad's house unannounced. She didn't knock, she didn't smile. She confronted Linda directly. You sold my sister's jewelry, she said, voice steady and lethal. You sold things that were never yours. Linda froze. Receipts, pawn shop records, emails negotiating prices, proof that my mother's sapphire necklace, vintage brooch, and porcelain figurines had been sold off quietly for cash. Susan turned to my dad. You knew about this, didn't you? He looked away. That silence, the same silence from the driveway, was the moment something irreversible happened. Carla was there. She heard everything. Her voice cracked. "You let her do this?" she asked him. Linda tried to blame me. "She forced us into this. If Jenna hadn't cut us off..." No one believed her. Susan later sent me the evidence in a folder: dates, amounts, emails. Seeing my mother's memories reduced to transactions made my stomach turn. It was no longer speculation. It was theft. That was the moment I stopped questioning myself. I wasn't the villain. I was the last person holding the truth. Once the truth came out about my mother's belongings, something inside me hardened. Not in a bitter way, in a resolved way. For years, I had questioned myself, wondered if I was too sensitive, too rigid, too unforgiving. But seeing my mother's sapphire necklace reduced to a pawn shop receipt stripped away every last doubt. This wasn't misunderstanding. This was exploitation. Susan didn't sugarcoat it when we spoke later that night. "Jenna," she said firmly, "you need to protect yourself. These people will take everything if you let them." She was right. Linda's lies weren't just emotional anymore. They were strategic. She was preparing a narrative where she was the victim and I was the monster who cut off her lifeline. And my father, through his silence, was letting it happen. I didn't confront them. I didn't warn them. I did something far more effective. I documented everything. Dana helped me organize years of bank records, wire transfers, rent payments, utilities, tuition, insurance. Tens of thousands of dollars I had quietly paid without contracts or acknowledgement. We categorized receipts, timestamps, and notes. Not out of spite, out of necessity. "People like Linda only understand consequences," Dana said. "And consequences need proof." While we prepared, Linda escalated. She began calling relatives, spinning stories about how I'd abandoned my family during the holidays, that I was hoarding money while they froze, that I was unstable, cruel, ungrateful. One night, my cousin Eric texted me screenshots from a group chat. Linda had written, "Jenna is sitting on her fortune while we struggle to eat." Reading that made my chest burn. But Eric followed it with, "I don't believe her. Something's off." That small message mattered more than he probably knew. Not everyone was buying the lie. Around that time, the pressure shifted to Carla. With my support gone, Linda turned on her next easiest target. Carla texted me late one night. "Linda's asking me to help cover rent and groceries. I can't do this, Jenna. I don't have money." My heart broke for her. But I knew stepping in would only restart the cycle. Linda wasn't desperate. She was predatory. Carla's anger toward me grew sharper after that. She accused me of being cold, of letting them fall apart, of choosing money over family. I wanted to tell her everything. I wanted to show her the receipts, the emails, the proof. But I didn't. Because sometimes people have to see the truth with their own eyes. By late January, I received a letter in the mail. The envelope was addressed to me, signed with Linda's name, but the handwriting wasn't hers. It was neat, controlled, my father's. Inside was an apology that felt rehearsed. "Let's move forward as a family." I laughed out loud, not because it was funny, because it was cowardly. He couldn't even speak to me in his own voice. 2 days later, the real move came. A summons, small claims court, Jackson, Mississippi. Linda and my father were suing me for $10,000. They claimed my decision to cut off financial support forced them to sell my mother's heirlooms, causing emotional and financial harm. They accused me of theft. The audacity stunned me, but it didn't surprise me. This was always where Linda was headed. I didn't panic. I prepared. Susan sent a signed affidavit stating the heirlooms belonged to me and Carla, not Linda. Pawn shop receipts proved Linda sold them months before Thanksgiving. Emails showed her negotiating prices, asking for fast cash. Dana and I spent nights rehearsing my statement. She made me practice staying calm, factual, unemotional. Truth always sounds colder than lies, she reminded me. That's why it wins. On the day of the hearing, I walked into the courthouse with my head high. Linda cried on cue. She told the judge I abandoned my family, that she had no choice, that I was wealthy and heartless. My father sat beside her, staring at the floor. When it was my turn, I laid everything out: the payments, the timelines, the receipts, the proof. I showed years of financial support. I showed emails proving the heirlooms were sold long before I cut anyone off. I showed Susan's affidavit. Linda interrupted. The judge shut her down. When the ruling came, it was swift. Case dismissed. Court costs assigned to them. As we left, I saw familiar faces in the gallery. Neighbors, acquaintances, whispering. The narrative Linda had built began to collapse in real time. And once it started, it didn't stop. Once the court ruling became public, everything changed faster than I expected. Linda had built her power on reputation, on appearing respectable, connected, trustworthy. The moment that cracked, people started pulling away. Not dramatically, not loudly, just enough to hurt. Neighbors who used to wave stopped making eye contact. Invitations dried up. A local shop owner refused Linda credit, citing unpaid tabs. Whispers followed them at church, at the grocery store, at community events. In a town like Jackson, silence is judgment. Without my financial support, their debts piled up fast. Overdue rent, legal fees, missed payments that had been quietly floating on my money for years finally sank. By mid-February, the house went into foreclosure. They moved into a cramped apartment across town, one they couldn't personalize, couldn't upgrade, couldn't show off. Linda lost her audience. My father lost his comfort. And I didn't feel triumphant. I felt finished. Carla didn't see it that way. She sent me one final message. You destroyed us, Jenna. I'm done. I stared at the words for a long time. I wanted to argue. I wanted to explain, again. I wanted to protect her from the truth she still wasn't ready to face. But I didn't reply. Because I finally understood something painful but necessary. You can't save someone who benefits from your sacrifice. That silence hurt more than losing Linda ever could. Carla was my sister. I loved her. But love that requires self-erasure isn't love. It's obligation dressed up as loyalty. And I was done paying for that. While their world collapsed, mine expanded. I closed another commercial real estate deal, a $90,000 commission that reaffirmed everything I had built on my own. Dana and I expanded our work, launching a community real estate workshop for first-time buyers. We spent weekends teaching people how to navigate contracts, credit, and ownership without fear. One woman hugged me after a session and said, "You made this feel possible." That mattered more than any check. We organized a charity auction to fund housing resources for low-income families. Local businesses donated. Clients showed up. Families left with furniture, appliances, hope. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was choosing where my energy went. Sometimes, late at night, I still thought about my dad, about the man who never defended me, about the father who chose silence over truth. That grief didn't disappear, but it softened. I stopped waiting for closure from people incapable of giving it. Looking back now, I see the pattern clearly. I was praised when I gave, ignored when I needed, punished when I stopped. That wasn't family. That was extraction. Walking away didn't make me selfish. It made me free. If you're watching this and you see yourself in my story, if you're the reliable one, the fixer, the woman who carries everyone else's weight, hear this. Your worth is not measured by how much you give away. Boundaries are not cruelty. And choosing yourself doesn't mean you failed anyone. It means you finally stopped failing yourself. I'm still Jenna, but I'm no longer the daughter who broke herself trying to be enough. I'm a woman who learned that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away and build a life that finally belongs to you.